Hello and welcome to our episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today I am absolutely delighted to welcome back, this time in a different guise, Richard Crook from Deus X Pay. Richard, how are you?
Toby, great to see you again.
Likewise. So again, as we talked about before, probably in the height of COVID, we did an online version of this and spoke about you in a former life. When I saw you come back over here at Deus X Pay, we've obviously had Tim Grant on talking about Deus X Capital. I was really excited to do this. I had to reach out to you, particularly about a light show in Dubai, which we'll come on to, a drone show in Dubai, which we'll come on to in a second, which was a super cool way of launching the business and the brand, etc. Or jumping on the back of it, as we've spoken about before. We've got loads of cool stuff to be talking about into it. You're in one of my favourite areas to be speaking about, full stop. I think this whole ecosystem is fascinating. It continues to evolve. It's evolved a lot since we last spoke about the convergence of traditional and decentralized markets and everything else in between. It feels like we're at a really exciting point of everything at the moment. So lots to get stuck into today.
Yes, lots to get stuck into. Toby, it's great to be back. And as you say...
And in person this time.
And before it was COVID, so it wasn't in person. And for someone who sort of every day's a week, every week's a month, it feels like a lifetime ago that we were speaking on other subjects. So this is wonderful to be back.
Well, brilliant to have you. Brilliant, and lots changed, as we say. So tell us first and foremost about your journey, and then how that sort of ties into Deus X Pay as well.
My journey's relatively traditional. I started off at UBS, turn of the century, went into...
Feel very old when you're saying that sort of stuff.
I'll come back to it. Yeah, turn of the century and just before the late 90s, where very rapidly we used to call it, it's a software house thinly disguised as a bank.
Yeah.
We grew very fast at UBS. I grew very fast at UBS. We were given an enormous amount of responsibility early. Crash came, UBS went in early. I went, like many others, out elsewhere. I was pulled in as the corporate cleanup crew into RBS. Royal Bank of Scotland had spectacularly showed it couldn't add up. Yeah. And I was over there to teach it to add up. I did that, so I did UBS for 10 years and then nearly did a decade at RBS. Ended up at the end of RBS running their emerging tech strategy, yeah. So taking the shrink wrap off AI, crypto, and AI, crypto and quantum.
Right, the interesting formation of it. That sort of stage.
It was, and we spent a lot of time on crypto and blockchain. My team and I left RBS in 2018 at the top of the ICO bubble, where we could see tokenization was something new. It was a new way of raising capital, and actually we wanted to be part of that. RBS was on its own journey, one that we'd set, but not one that we wanted personally to be part of. Stood up ourselves as our own company, Lab 577, went through COVID and did a fair amount of product build out around tokenization, took a product to market, and they got gobbled up by one of our clients, BCB Group. Now continue to bank what we used to describe as the unbankables, the crypto firms, one of the prominent bankers of the crypto industry in Europe. I was the COO there as part of that merger. I did that all the way through the FTX collapse, Signature and Silvergate collapse. Was an interesting time. Stepped down as a COO of BCB and was just gently and enjoying a little bit of downtime, sailing along the north coast of France.
Perfect.
When a good friend of mine, Tim Grant, rang me up and said, "Hey,
got something for you.
Could you come and help me?" To which you don't say no to Tim.
I've met him once.
Have you met him once?
And feel that I know what you're saying, even from that conversation.
Yeah. So I hold it against him that my sailing was cut short, but I'm sure I'll get a chance to do that again. I have been busy with Deus X Pay over the last year. And you've seen us, as you say, the drone light show was probably a point of change or pivot for the company. So we're really pleased with that.
Absolutely. So give us the whole context. And for those who haven't watched the episode, do go back and see Tim Grant talking Deus X Capital. But I think there's a really interesting sort of ecosystem of companies that you guys are building. Talk to me first about Deus X Capital, and then how Deus X Pay fits into it, because I think you're in a really interesting spot there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. Deus X Capital is better spoken to by Tim. I think you see Deus X Capital as you say, a collection of companies that are becoming an ecosystem. Deus X Pay, I'm the CEO of Deus X Pay. Deus X Pay is, as it says, owned by Deus X. We're fully part of that ecosystem. That's why the first part of the name is there. And then Pay plays to the stablecoin positioning that we are placing ourselves into, where we can see an adoption of stablecoins and stablecoin payments. We are solving cross-border payments for most companies that are coming to us. They find themselves in a position where stablecoins is a useful way of solving their cross-border challenges, which continues to be a challenge.
It definitely does, doesn't it? And within that, talk to me about the sort of phase of the business that you're at right now.
As a phase of a business, we've got a product, a successful product. We've got product market fit. We have grown rapidly, and now we find ourselves really staring down a classic tech adoption, and with that in mind, we are well positioned. Company operates mostly out of the UAE. Actually, the team is fully remote, so actually spread across the world. We've got our people where our clients are. That allows them to cover the clients 24/7. I don't have to deal with the sort of return to office diktats and all of that, which is rather nice. The team can focus on serving.
You could be doing it from this boat in the south.
I could be doing it from the boat. The team is absolutely focused on the clients, and they get to do that, and they get to be close to the clients. The majority of our clients are out in the UAE, where we've found a really good product market fit.
Yeah.
We've seen.
There's so much going on out there at the moment, full stop. And you've just come back from there a couple of weeks ago?
A couple of weeks ago. It's not as warm as I expected it to be in December, but it's not as bad as hot as it would be if I was out there in July. No, it is a tremendous place, growing at a rapid rate. There is a lot of energy, youthfulness, and from my perspective, a great place to do business.
Yeah, well, and then talk to me a little bit about that. Why is it a great place to do business in your space right now?
I think there's a couple of things that are structurally or infrastructurally that they've got right. They've got an incredible airport that allows everybody to come in, and actually, if you look at it, it's the same distance from Tokyo and Seattle. So they're just geographically in the right place in the world for everybody to come and go into Dubai and the UAE. They've got this lovely overlay of tourism, which London has, right? Actually, you don't realise, but you've got this kind of layer of tourism. So there's a lot of people here having fun. They're here on holiday. So there's that generally. They have grown from nothing, from the sand, a financial centre. So there is actually a tremendous amount of business being done. So it feels like a youthful city. It really does feel like the city that I remember in the 90s. And then those are the structural infrastructure things they've done in the modern way, but there is a traditional centre. They are and were because of the creek, the Dubai Creek. They were a traditional marketplace. So it was a place to do business in ancient times, and you see that crossroads still exists. So there are ancient crossroads of people coming together, and ancient industries coming together. I'm just merely a new generation coming through who've crossing very ancient paths.
Well, it has got this whole thing, hasn't it, of the old and the new and everything else in between it. It's a really interesting sort of play. I want to come back to coming back to that old and new, this sort of traditional background that you came into the entrepreneurial journey to then, you say you can't say no to Tim, etc., and it comes up, but you could if there wasn't something absolutely fascinating to get involved in, and I think that's the interesting part from everything I look at across all of these businesses that are coming through the group. So tell me what it was specifically about Deus X Pay that said I can't miss out on this. I'm back in the game, and I've come from this, as I say, this very traditional background as Tim has, etc., to really embracing this new world, this new opportunity.
That's a great question. So I've done. Obviously, big corp with UBS and then RBS team have done well. At UBS and badly at RBS. I've done from scratch, build your firm. I've also done post-Series A. You're right. I'm sitting on a boat, and Tim's got to give me something that's actually worth doing. I think there's two reasons that I came into Deus X Pay, and I'm now staying in Deus X Pay. I came in because I could see that stablecoins has become the killer app of blockchain, and actually there is something here that McKinsey called out back in 2016 when they said, look, cross-border payments is where blockchain is going to realise benefit. And we've been up through the adoption curve and down. We're definitely through that trough of disillusionment that we would call it, and then actually we are now powering through, and we are seeing day on day clients coming to us who are solving a cross-border payment problem. And that is what drives me as a CEO. As an engineer, I'm solving a problem, and I can see us solving a problem. I think the other reason you stay with a company is always the people. Everyone says you leave a company because of the manager, right? I am gifted with both a boss in Tim over in Deus X, who's doing something exciting, worth following that. And then on the other side, I'm gifted with a team of around 30, 40 people who are actually spread across the world, are drawn culturally from many different places, got many different educations from different locations, and they are just one of those cracking teams that you want to stay in, because actually every morning they get me up in the morning and away we go. It's exciting.
And do you know what? I love when you talk about that, and I can see it in your face, because and I've had a few of these conversations so far this year where you're talking about to people about who are doing really interesting things, and some of it will be in various different areas. I've had a couple of people on recently talking about the sort of intellectual challenges that they're having with AI and large language models, et cetera, et cetera. Just you talking about the thing there, you say as an engineer's background of seeing problems and being able to solve them. That's a really exciting thing to be involved in. And when you've got a bunch of people there who are also looking at something there where you're saying, right, here is a problem, a major or opportunity, whichever way you want to look at those sort of things, and we're able to make a difference in that. That's an exciting place, I think, for anyone to be working, right?
That's what you're looking for. You want it to be growing. It doesn't matter if it's an industry or an economy or a company. You want to be in one of those, or best still, all three: a growing company in a growing economy, or industry and growing economy, and you want to be with smart, interesting people. That's what makes you get up in the morning. Definitely. And smart, interesting people coming into talking about a sort of game-changing area of business is the utopia of all that sort of thing. And you're talking about the sort of stablecoin being the game changer in high value transactions. Expand on that a little bit. Tell me what that. Let's start with the problem. The problem is cross-border payments. Most people on the listening to this are coming in from the kind of G7 or what we call the North Rich, or the North, the global North. The G7 is solved. You can get a USD account. You can send USD, no problem at all. And a name like yours and a passport like yours, you're good. Outside of the G7, specifically outside the G7, but inside the G20, where there is a growing wealth, huge middle class, who are building companies and then actually wanting to transfer their wealth for whatever reason, either for their commercial, corporate business, or they've got international clients or suppliers, or they're just trying to personally move their own wealth around. They can't get access to USD, or they can't move that USD, or they just can't move their wealth. We don't have to call it. It doesn't have to be denominated in USD, but USD is and dollar is king, and that challenge continues to grow. McKinsey called it out in 2016. Cross-border payments is where this is going to solve. We have solved it. Over the public blockchains, you are now able to move wealth. Spent the last 30 years building an internet of information. That's actually what we built. Doesn't matter if you're publishing a website and getting your corporate brochures out, or taking orders, or moving on to taking crowdsourcing information in Twitter. It doesn't matter. That journey is done. We've done that. It's what we did for 30 years. We now have an internet of value, and we are able to transfer value 24/7, instantly, without friction. And that is what we're in the business of. So finance without friction is what we coined ourselves as, and that's what Deus X Pay is absolutely helping businesses transfer cross-border payments as a way of removing things.
I love this, and I have so many fascinating conversations on this show, which is a real privilege. And I'm always trying to piece together the sort of blueprint of what makes companies successful. And I think it's about, sort of looking at these challenges and solving one of various things. I speak about this all the time on the show, and the removal of friction into antiquated banking processes is something that seems really obvious, doesn't it, as we move into a digital world? But it's common sense and common practice are difficult, and there's a lot of challenges when you're talking about regulation, and particularly in an area where there's been such innovation, in an area where there's skepticism from institutional finance behind it as well. To actually go through this and do what you're doing, you made it sound very blasé there. It's actually a lot more complicated.
Oh, sorry, no. It's interesting. I spent some time. Tom over at Monzo and spent some time on a number of the early fintechs.
Yeah.
And I always pointed out that this is lipstick on a pig. You can issue a debit card in whatever colour you like, but you are on the front side, and you can put a nice app in front of people, and it's going to get you an MB from the Queen. but you're only fixing the front end of a system that is clunky and old and traditional. Yeah. And actually, if you want to really change the world, you've got to change that at the back. Yeah. And that's what has kept me in this blockchain crypto arena, is going after, we are changing the actual infrastructure of finance, which we did over the last 30 years in terms of improving the public markets and all of the work that we did during the 90s and 2000s in those investment banks to get the public markets to the efficiency you currently see. Yeah. FinTech, when we look at it, the majority of it is in payments and is about moving, holding, changing or swapping and growing money. That's all we do. Yeah. And actually what we do over at Deus X Pay is bring to those clients a faster and a cheaper. VCs are going to love that. It's faster and it's cheaper. What else is there? Yes. Well, the answer is it's safer.
More productive.
Well, it's safe. It's safer, right? So productive is probably the word. We always kind of land on the safer. Yeah. And immediately the audience is like, where's he going with this? Yeah. Well, actually, safer from a perspective of a client experience. Yeah. Most people will have had a payment, especially cross-border, blocked. Yeah. It will have been stopped somewhere, either by their bank trying to send it, or by the receiving bank on the other end, or by one of the banks on the way. Now, that is a terrible customer experience. But we've made it worse by, in actual fact, we've added these AI transaction monitoring systems in and along the way. Each one is looking and checking to see whether the transaction, the legitimate transaction you and I are making, it should be held up. If at any point they think that it's suspicious, they will hold it up. Yeah. They can hold it up indefinitely, and best of all, for a customer experience, they are not allowed to tell you anything about where that transaction is. Yeah. Because that's tipping off. Yeah, yeah. And we've made it illegal for them to explain to the customer what's gone on with your cross-border payment. And most people will have experienced a payment being held up, or an account being frozen, and it is disastrous from a customer experience if you're a merchant trying to receive a payment, or it's a timely payment for something in the aviation industry. And actually, what we have is a system that allows us to move 24/7 instantly from one bank account to another without having to hop through this archaic cross-border banking, where in the G7 it would be 1 or 2 hops. It could be 4, 5, 6 hops if you're in the G20. Each time you're running a roulette of, are you going to get stopped? Yeah. And if you get stopped, it's painful for the customer experience. And that, sadly, is the customer experience we have designed, couldn't have designed a worse one, and delivered. And that is the cross-border payment solution we are solving, which is why, from our perspective, it's safer from a customer experience position to send it. We still have to fulfill all the same AML, CTF checks. So it's not as if anyone's avoiding that before the people are shouting into the phone. The answer is, actually, we fulfill the same duties, and we're required to fulfill the same duties because we're a licensed, regulated payment provider. But actually, the payment itself is safer from a customer experience perspective.
I think that's a really important element, isn't it? Because I've sat on panels and moderated panels speaking about this sort of subject before, where the adoption, because I don't think necessarily safety comes naturally with the digital asset space. When it comes through to it, people have that immediate sort of reticence or around where it goes, and skepticism that sort of comes in there. But actually, when you're talking about this, trust and safety, and actually, look, you talk there about the customer experience. I think it goes a lot further than customer experience into potentially devastating consequences for people and businesses at various different stages if these problems do come up for them.
Yeah.
Which means that it becomes a really important thing, and having that sort of ability to come into it. And I guess that's, if we're talking about the role of stablecoins in bridging that sort of traditional and digital economy pace, that's where it all comes into allowing and affording more stability, more security around that as well, does it?
Yeah, and I think what we are seeing is actually stablecoins are native to the crypto industry, and that's where they were born from. But we're now seeing them being used in what we would tend to call the real economy, outside of financial services, outside of crypto.
Yeah.
They're being adopted by aviation, they're being adopted by real estate, they're being adopted out into the wider TradFi space.
Yeah.
Financial services are now using them quite readily.
Yeah.
For that reason, it is safer to send from a customer experience, because I don't run the roulette of getting caught by a correspondent bank. It's safer from the point of view of I know that I'm using a regulated entity, so no one wants to send a payment and know whether it's going to make it or not. You need to use a regulated payment provider or a regulated VASP to move the money. So everyone checks whether they are using a regulated capability, because they want to make sure that they're not breaking any rules or the rest of it. But the other part of this, which we really haven't scratched yet, which is it's on a blockchain. So you can see all the way along where this stablecoin has been and gone.
Which is exactly the opposite of what you're talking about.
Well,
before.
I can't see where that actual source of wealth came from.
Yeah.
When I look down the fiat lines, it kind of went into a correspondent bank and then came out the other side. What an incredible way to clean it up.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on the blockchain, I know exactly, and we do KYT, know your token.
Yeah.
We are required to, and we do it very well.
Yeah.
And actually, because of the clients we find ourselves having to be, because we come from the crypto industry, we have to do it at an even higher level than we would normally, because we're held, sadly, to a higher standard than the traditional FI.
Yeah.
And actually, we do sometimes receive tokens that actually we're not allowed to handle. And guess what? We send them straight back.
Yeah.
And you don't have that in the fiat space.
Yeah.
So when we talk about safer, it's safer in three ways. It's safer because we're held to a higher regard on the regulations. It's safer for the customer experience because it delivers. And it's safer because actually we've now got this newer tech that can see all the way up where those tokens came from.
Yeah. It's so amazing to hear that finally being said now at the moment, because I don't think it's necessarily been there, hasn't it? And as when you talk about this being a safer route, I just find that a really interesting sort of play, and that sort of brings us into the whole concept of and we joked about it before we came on air about the whole concept of compliance within this area, which isn't necessarily the most glamorous part of the whole process, but to me it's fundamental to mass adoption, to all this sort of thing moving further forward, and it seems like you guys are absolutely nailing that. So if we were to look at compliance and building that trust with your clients and investors and other stakeholders within the play, talk to us about how that sort of comes about as well.
Yeah, I tend to use the airline industry quite successfully here. When you buy an airline ticket, you're choosing where you're going and you're comparing them usually on price.
Yeah.
You don't compare them on safety.
Yeah.
They're all the same to you, because the airline industry has very successfully got actually a level of safety which means, bar a few, you would happily go with any things. You're not changing. Well, I'll pay a little more because
I'm not going to go cheap for that one that might drop out of the sky. Yeah.
You don't do that, and you also have that same standard in finance. As long as they are regulated and held to a standard by the regulator, you expect that regulator to hold that institution to a level of the rules, and they do.
Yeah.
I've worked in the regulated industry now all of my career. it is one of the most regulated industries,
Yeah.
and we continue to see a tsunami of regulation since '08.
Yeah.
Actually, what we see is a standard which is the same for TradFi as it is for DeFi,
Yeah.
and there is no different rule book. The rules will change and evolve as new technologies come through, but we are all going to be held to the same standard so that the end customer, be them a consumer or a merchant or a corporate, can judge us on price and beauty, not on safety. And that's why, for me, compliance, the transparency that we provide to our clients and to our regulators means that they trust us. Because actually, if you're in financial services, you're in the business of trust.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is often underplayed, isn't it?
Only when it goes wrong.
Yes.
And having lived through Lehman's, UBS is. I was there when UBS dropped the ball.
Yeah.
Take you through Silvergate Signature and FTX.
Yeah.
You lose the trust. You lose the bank.
Yeah. And that becomes incredibly important. So building up this business within this sort of space and having that sort of message, what sort of, how do you solve that? How do you create that sort of thing? How do you build that sort of, you're talking about some, the customers who you've been building trust with. What is the secret to building that trust for you and the team?
You start with the people.
Yeah.
You always start with the people. I'd rather have bad process and good people than bad people and good process.
Yeah.
Right? I think we look at some of the fails actually within the industry.
Yeah.
They had good process but bad people.
Yeah.
You've got to start with good people, and that actually is, as I say, one of the strengths I've got in Deus X Pay. Is I have this incredible team. Don't really want to make it any bigger. I'd rather stay at 40 people.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of Dunbar numbers. I've lived and worked in 40,000, 80,000 teams. I want to stay with 40 people, spread across the world, that give me that diversity of thinking from within the different cultures and educations. But they start from the compliance space.
Yeah.
They've got to have the ethics and the ethical angle to be able to do the conduct that's required of the regulator. And the regulator now does spend an awful lot of time making sure the people that own and operate these financial services businesses are fit and proper.
Yeah.
Following that, you then make sure that you are continuing to manage your risks across all the different types so that you can be compliant and look the regulator in the eye. And it isn't just a tick-boxing exercise. You can look them in the eye and say, actually, we've got control of our business.
Yeah.
We are very transparent and very open. And actually, when you then start to get out to your clients can stand there and say, actually, I'm using Deus X Pay because I trust them.
Yeah.
And that's actually why our clients come back every time. They trust us.
And this is a very interesting part for me as well, alongside that, because you talked about some of the numbers, the sizes of organisations you've spent the majority of your career in, thus far, and I would imagine that's traditionally in very traditional sort of environments of office space, etc. And you've transferred into this thing and had this entrepreneurial journey, and now here with Deus X Pay, and you're talking about this big, well, not this 40-person remote team all over the world, and saying that it's all about the people. Now, I find this really interesting about how you build. You're there and you know those people, and you're building it on trust. To when you're playing in the game of trust at the same sort of time. So tell me how, in as a remoter team and a business as that is, you're able to to weed that out and have that same sort of ability to know what that trust looks like in those individuals.
Yeah, and this,
because it's really interesting.
No, it is really interesting, because it is an interesting space, because we are on a journey around, are we in an office or are we remote or are we a bit hybrid? And I get that for some people that's novel. It isn't novel for me. I was dialing in to look after UBS's systems remotely. The only thing I couldn't do was remotely access the Swiss ones because of the laws. I had to go to Switzerland to see them. This is not new, the remote working, certainly for the industries and the companies I've worked in.
Yeah, of course.
I watch people come into RBS, sit opposite each other with monitors and send emails back and forth. Or worse, join calls next to each other. And people are doing that today. They'll think, oh yeah, I did that yesterday. What's interesting is post-COVID, we're now having the debate. And actually, we had the most wonderful experience where we picked up all 40 people from wherever they were. Buenos Aires, Hanoi, Melbourne, Cape Town, London, Dubai. We brought them all together in Cape Town, took them off-site, and actually spent time building trust and confidence in both themselves and the team that they could do their roles. And that doesn't mean that we did sort of silly activities and the rest of it. Actually,
not catching each other falling backwards.
No, just time spent with each other. And we all recognise that face-to-face and personal contact is tremendously powerful. No one denies that. What we're debating is what do you do in the office, not how much time you spend in the office. And actually that's really where this crux comes from, which is go to the office and spend time with your colleagues, building trust and having that human interaction, which is fabulously important, and then spend time outside of the office being productive, where you don't have the interruptions of, do you want to go for a coffee? Or the noise of your neighbour trying to get on a call, or the bad Wi-Fi, or the bad connection, or the lack of desks that you might find. So from our perspective, it's about what you do in the office, not how much time you spend in the office.
Love it, okay. And let's move on to this year and Deus X Pay and what it looks like. So, it's been an extravagant start to the year. Dubai with drone shows, etc. A lot of hype growing about the business. I've been following you closely on LinkedIn, and there's been some great content that's been coming out on there. It's always really interesting stuff that's coming through. Titillate us about what's happening in 2025 for Deus X Pay, what we can expect to see.
So I think we can answer this in two ways. The first one is on the Deus X Pay side. We are now out. We've relaunched with Deus X Pay. We're there as a cross-border payment provider. You saw us in Dubai on the skyline as Deus X Pay with the drone show. Fabulous way to start the year. We are watching, and we are part of the adoption of stablecoin cross-border payments, cross-border payments using stablecoins in the real economy. So we are out there talking to the non-financial sector, the non-crypto sector, who are trying to use stablecoins for cross-border payments. I don't mind what you're doing. You could be a software company, you could be a consultant, you could be a lawyer, you could be out there running a aviation business or some other transport, maritime business. You can be in the brokerage and financial sector, and you now recognise that actually USD payments is a challenge that you want to solve, and that's what Deus X Pay is doing, and that's what we will be doing all year. And I can't tell you how quickly this adoption's coming, but I know it's coming, and I can feel it because they are coming through our door at a ready rate. That's on us, the Deus X Pay. I think the ground is changing beneath us, or the sea, as I'm always a sailor. The sea is changing beneath me as well, right? The 2025 has started with the inauguration of a new administration in the US. President Trump is in. He's made good on the promises he made at Nashville in the crypto space, and those are going to resonate across the world. If you operate in the US, you're going to feel it immediately. But there is no doubt that the other regulators in the other jurisdictions are watching and following, and will have to follow closely. I'm not the only one that says it's a race to the bottom, as the regulators all recognise that if they don't adjust, then the US will win and all the business will go to the US. That's what Trump is hoping, the regulators in the rest of the jurisdictions. And we can see that happening here in the UK, where Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequer, has made it really clear that, to use her words at the Mansion House speech, we have for too long regulated for risk and not for reward. Now she calls it growth. In the industry we'd call it risk and reward. It's a trade-off. We are looking for growth in the UK economy. The city is the UK economy. We're 50% of the exports of this island. If you want growth, you start here in the city, and she knows that, which is why she's starting with the regulators, specifically the FCA and others, to say, what are you doing for growth?
Yeah.
And the FCA now has its new objective, secondary, of growth, and we're now seeing the regulators talking. So you're seeing a ground shift already, and that was before Trump turned up and changed his landscape.
Yeah.
And then over in Europe, MiCA was actually a leading regulation and came into this year being the leading regulation, and it has, if you think of the US regulation space, isn't very clear yet. We're waiting for the dust to settle on the executive orders. The European space is actually very clear. We know how to operate.
Yeah.
We're operating in, Deus X Pay is operating in Europe. We're a licensed MiCA VASP, going for migrating to MiCA as we go through that process. And actually, with that in mind, it has been the best clarity we've had in the regulatory space on crypto. But by the end of this year, with the UK shifting, the US shifting, the UAE's come out with its VARA, and we are gained one of those. We've gained VARA in principle. It's a very moving, changing sea of sand. And I think what we will see by the end of this year is a very different landscape. Nobody wants to crystal ball of where that will land, but it is worth following this space because the regulations are changing.
And that creates opportunity, and I think that's been something which, as you say, you've got this big narrative that Trump's brought in a very positive sort of way since before his administration and coming into it. So there's a big buzz around it there. I remember FinTech Week last year with Rishi Sunak standing up and saying that this is the opportunity for the UK to be the leading crypto nation in the world, etc., putting a narrative around that, and obviously with elections and various other bits and pieces, it moving backwards a little bit. Even down to the Anderson Horowitz story the other day of them moving back out to the US to follow it there. But I think that's missing a great opportunity over here, and I'm pleased you sort of highlighted that we have got a great position to be able to do that. And Rachel Reeves, no matter where people talk about what's gone right or wrong so far over the last few months, wherever your sort of politics stand on it, that narrative of growth has to be backed up. And I think this opportunity within the space you're talking about is incredibly is an incredible one to take hold of, and I think if we can get businesses like yours creating the sort of opportunities and creating the momentum that you've had so far already with the team that you've had in play, that to me is one of the most exciting conversations I have so far this year about where we can go. So I really appreciate you coming in and sharing that with us today, and I'm really excited to keep on watching it and seeing what sort of how you top a light show in Dubai like that. So I'm looking forward. I'm sure there's something going to be coming behind that as well. So let's finish, Richard, with you talking about how people can get in touch. If people have heard this, recognise the problems, want to find out more, want to pick your brains about it all, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So Toby, it's been great to be here. Sorry it's been so long since I came before. So we've moved a lot forward. I think 2025 is going to be a very exciting year.
Yes.
We've now got this killer app of blockchain stablecoins is the killer app of blockchain.
Yeah.
Deus X Pay, you can come and find us. Just look us up on Google. Deus X Pay. From our perspective, you can get and contact us just straight on the website. For me, best place to look me up is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You can follow me there. I'm following others there, and you'll see the conversation pretty open as we try and watch what's going on on the space. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Absolutely no problem at all. That's where you'll find me.
Perfect. Listen, great. Thanks so much for coming in. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you.
And we will see you all soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot for watching.